Today, the Springfield Law Department releasing new findings about City Council President Trayce Whitfield. The legal memo says her activities appear to constitute violations of state conflict of interest laws.
The potential new violations involve her financial interests in Jets Property Development, LLC. Western Mass News reporter Addie Patterson joining us live now from outside of City Hall with details. Addie.
Chris and Amanda, the legal memo released today shows a troubling pattern. Springfield City Council President Trayce Whitfield appears to have engaged in multiple violations of state conflict of interest laws over the past several years. The potential violations date back to June 2021 when Whitfield purchased a city-owned property on Crest Street at a tax foreclosure auction for $9,450. She filed no conflict of interest disclosures at the time, despite being a city councilor. 6 months later, she transferred the property to Jets Property Development, LLC, a company managed by her and her son, Delaney Bland. The company then sold it to Whitfield's mother. Just this month, Jets won bids on 2 more city properties at public auction. Again, Whitfield did not disclose her financial interests. In 2022 and again in 2025, Whitfield personally arranged meetings between city officials and Jets to discuss acquiring city-owned properties for development. She reached out to the director of housing and other departments to set up these meetings, acting as an agent for Jets while presenting herself as a city councilor. The legal memo also alleges that between August 2024 and January 2026, Whitfield sent at least 11 emails to city departments on behalf of Jets regarding the Wallace Street discontinuance petition. If approved, the petition would add a valuable piece of land to Jets development project on Wisteria Street, land the company wouldn't have to pay for. Throughout this 17-month campaign, Whitfield never disclosed her financial interests to city staff. The city says Whitfield violated conflict of interest laws over and over again by directly engaging with city staff on matters where she had financial interest without ever disclosing that interest. The city has now referred this matter to the Massachusetts State Ethics Commission. That agency will now determine whether to investigate and what enforcement actions, if any, should follow. And at this time, the City Council President Trayce Whitfield has not shared comment with Western Mass News. We, of course, will keep you updated with the latest developments on this story as more details become available. For now, reporting live in Springfield, Addie Patterson, Western Mass.